Hey there! So, 2 years ago, I was staring at my monthly expenses, completely shocked at how much money was literally disappearing from my bank account just to feed myself. Over $600 a month. For one person. Between the takeout, the daily coffee runs, and those impulsive grocery trips where I'd buy ingredients that would eventually rot in my fridge, I was hemorrhaging money on food. Then something happened that forced me to change. I lost my job during company-wide layoffs and suddenly had to make my savings stretch. That's when I discovered a batch cooking system that honestly changed everything for me. Within 3 months, I cut my food spending from $600 to just under $300 a month, while actually eating healthier meals than before. And no, I wasn't just eating rice and beans every day. Let me start by saying I'm not naturally organized or particularly skilled in the kitchen. For years, I was the person who'd buy fresh produce with good intentions, then find it liquefied in the back of my fridge weeks later. I'd grab takeout because I was too tired to cook, then feel guilty about both the expense and the unhealthy food choices. What really opened my eyes was when I actually tracked every single food expense for months. Every coffee, every lunch out, every grocery trip, every late-night delivery order. The total was genuinely shocking, $637 for just me. As someone approaching retirement age and thinking about living on a fixed income, this was completely unsustainable. I remember sitting at my kitchen table that night, surrounded by receipts, feeling this wave of anxiety. How had I let this get so out of control? And more importantly, how could I fix it without feeling like I was depriving myself? The layoff was actually a blessing in disguise. With suddenly limited income, I had no choice but to get serious about my food budget. I started researching and experimenting with different approaches. I tried meal planning apps, but they often suggested fancy ingredients I'd use once and never again. I tried extreme couponing, but ended up with pantries full of processed foods I didn't really want to eat. I tried those meal kit delivery services, which were convenient but still pretty expensive. What finally clicked was when my neighbor Martha, who's in her 70s, invited me over for dinner. She served this amazing homemade soup, fresh bread, and a simple salad. When I complimented her cooking, she laughed and said, "Oh, I only actually cook once a week. Everything else is just reheating and assembling." That was my light bulb moment. Martha showed me her simple batch cooking system, one that she'd been using for decades to feed her family on a teacher's salary. It wasn't fancy or complicated. It was just smart. The first pillar of this method is intentional planning. Not just making a meal plan, but planning with specific purposes in mind. Here's what I learned to do differently. I now plan based on what I call the backbone ingredients, the versatile items that can transform into multiple different meals throughout the week. For example, a large batch of roasted chicken might become Monday's dinner with roasted vegetables, Tuesday's chicken salad sandwiches for lunch, Wednesday's chicken enchiladas, Thursday's chicken soup. The same goes for beans, rice, roasted vegetables, and even sauces. Cook once, eat multiple times, but in completely different ways so you don't feel like you're eating leftovers. I also learned to plan around sales and seasons. When sweet potatoes are 49 cents pound in fall, they become a backbone ingredient. When berries are abundant in summer, I'll freeze them for smoothies year-round. This isn't extreme couponing or spending hours hunting deals. It's just being mindful of what's affordable right now and building your meals around those ingredients. The game changer for me was establishing a dedicated batch cooking day. For me, it's Sunday afternoon, but it could be any day that works for your schedule. Here's what my typical batch cooking day looks like. I spend about 2-3 hours in the kitchen, but I'm not cooking complete meals. Instead, I'm preparing components that can be mixed and matched throughout the week. This might include roasting a whole chicken or a large batch of chicken thighs, cooking a pot of beans or lentils, preparing a big batch of brown rice or quinoa, roasting several sheet pans of seasonal vegetables, making 1 or 2 versatile sauces like pesto, marinara, or a simple vinaigrette, chopping raw vegetables for easy snacking and quick salads. The key is that I'm not standing in the kitchen for hours every day. I'm front-loading the work when I have energy and time, so that on busy weeknights, I can throw together a healthy meal in minutes. And here's what surprised me the most. The food actually tastes better this way. When you cook components separately and combine them fresh, you avoid that leftover taste that happens when fully assembled meals sit in the fridge for days. Let's talk about something seemingly mundane but absolutely crucial: food storage. Before I started batch cooking, my container cabinet was a disaster zone of mismatched lids and stained plastic. Now, it's one of the most organized areas of my home. I invested, and I mean invested, because good containers aren't cheap, but they save money in the long run, in a set of glass containers in various sizes. The glass doesn't stain or absorb odors, and I can see exactly what's inside without opening them. I label everything with masking tape and a marker, not just what's inside, but when it was made. This eliminated the mystery container problem, where you're afraid to open something because you can't remember how long it's been in there. I also organize my refrigerator by meal component categories. The proteins on one shelf, grains and starches on another, vegetables in the crisper drawers, sauces and condiments in the door. This system makes it incredibly easy to grab components and assemble meals quickly. No more digging through the refrigerator wondering what you could make for dinner. One of the biggest myths about batch cooking is that you'll be eating the same boring meals all week. That's absolutely not how this works, at least not the way I do it. The secret is in how you transform your backbone ingredients. Let me give you a concrete example from last week. On Sunday, I made a pot of black beans, 2 cups of brown rice, roasted sweet potatoes, roasted chicken thighs, a batch of simple tomato sauce, chopped bell peppers, onions, and lettuce. From these components, I made Mexican-inspired bowl with beans, rice, chicken, and salsa, Mediterranean wrap with chicken, hummus, and vegetables, grain bowl with sweet potatoes, black beans, and tahini dressing, chicken and vegetable soup using homemade stock from the chicken bones, breakfast hash with sweet potatoes and eggs, same ingredients, completely different meals, different flavor profiles. I also keep what I call my flavor changers well stocked. These are the spices, condiments, and sauces that can completely transform basic ingredients. Things like curry paste, soy sauce, different vinegars, and various dried herbs don't cost much, but can make the same ingredients taste entirely different from day to day. Let's talk about the actual savings, because that's what we're all here for, right? Before batch cooking, my monthly food expenses looked like this: groceries, $350, takeout delivery, $180, coffee shops, $60 work lunches, $50 total, $640 after implementing this batch cooking system. Groceries, $280, takeout delivery, $40 coffee, $0 work lunches, $0 total. $320, that's a savings of $320 per month, or $3,840 per year. Think about what you could do with nearly $4,000 extra dollars in your pocket every year. And here's the thing that still amazes me: I'm eating better food now than I was before. More vegetables, better quality proteins, less processed ingredients. My grocery bill is lower because I'm not wasting food anymore, and I'm buying ingredients strategically rather than impulsively. For those of us thinking about retirement or already living on a fixed income, this kind of savings can make a tremendous difference in your financial security without sacrificing quality of life. While I started batch cooking purely to save money, I've experienced some unexpected health benefits that are worth mentioning. First, I naturally eat more vegetables now. When pre-chopped veggies are ready to grab in the fridge, I'm much more likely to include them in my meals or eat them as snacks. Second, I have complete control over ingredients. I know exactly what's going into my food. No hidden sugars, excessive salt, or mysterious additives like you'd find in restaurant meals or processed foods. Third, portion control is easier. I can portion out my meals appropriately instead of being served restaurant-sized portions that are often 2 or 3 times what we should actually be eating. And finally, there's the mental health aspect. There's something deeply satisfying about opening your refrigerator and seeing organized, prepared food ready to go. The reduction in decision fatigue alone has been worth it. No more standing in front of the open fridge at 6 p.m., exhausted and hungry, trying to figure out what to make. For those of us in our 50s, 60s, and beyond, these health benefits can be just as valuable as the financial savings. Proper nutrition becomes increasingly important as we age, and this system makes healthy eating the easy default rather than something that requires willpower. If you're feeling inspired to try this approach, let me offer some practical advice for getting started without feeling overwhelmed. First, start small. Don't try to completely overhaul your food system in one weekend. Begin with just preparing 1 or 2 backbone ingredients and see how you can use them throughout the week. Second, invest in good storage containers gradually. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars up front. Start with a few key pieces and add more as you go. Third, embrace imperfection. There will be weeks when your batch cooking doesn't go as planned, or when you still end up ordering takeout. That's completely fine. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Fourth, find a rhythm that works for you. Maybe Sunday isn't your ideal cooking day. Maybe you prefer to split your prep between 2 shorter sessions. The system should adapt to your life, not the other way around. And finally, keep it simple, especially at first. Choose recipes and techniques you're comfortable with. This isn't the time to attempt complex new dishes. Save that experimentation for when you have the batch cooking basics down. When I look back at where I was 2 years ago, stressed about money, eating poorly, and wasting both food and time, I'm genuinely grateful for discovering this approach to feeding myself. What started as a financial necessity has become one of the best lifestyle changes I've ever made. Batch cooking isn't a new concept. Our grandparents and great-grandparents cooked this way out of necessity. Somewhere along the way, in our convenience-focused culture, we lost these practical skills that make so much sense both financially and nutritionally. The beauty of this system is its simplicity. You don't need special equipment or chef-level skills. You don't need to clip coupons or hunt for obscure ingredients. You just need some basic planning, a few hours once a week, and the willingness to try a different approach. If you're struggling with your food budget, especially as you approach retirement or adjust to living on a fixed income, I cannot recommend this method highly enough. Start small, be patient with yourself, and watch as both your wallet and your well-being benefit. Thanks so much for listening to my story. If you found this helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more budget-friendly nutrition tips. I'd also love to hear in the comments if you have any batch cooking tips of your own to share. We're all learning together here. And hey, if you have questions about getting started with batch cooking or adapting it to your specific situation, drop those in the comments too. I read every single one and try to respond to as many as I can. Until next time, happy cooking and even happier saving.